we focused a lot on, okay, let me just start us off now that we are on, and then we will. All right, well, welcome everyone. We are glad to be live on Sober Sunday. Welcome those of you who have been with us for the first time, and those of you who have been with us before. This is Sober Sunday with me, Simon Bevy, from Transform Nations, and I'm joined by Sophia, who is my good wife and co-worker as well. We work together a lot. And we are grateful to host this conversation. This is part 2 of what we began last week. We were talking about parenting and education. And we had so many things we touched on. We have received very good feedback from many of you, but there's a lot more we were not able to touch on. So we're on a parenting series. This is a third of that. And we're looking forward to greater conversations together because we believe that our community is an expression of the quality of families therein. And so parenting is very crucial. And before I introduce my guest, just to say to all of you, please invite your friends, those who are parents and those who are not, because these conversations prepare even those who are not parents for what is coming. But they're good conversations that cut across the board. I also want to ask you to host a watch party and make sure that you get more people to watch. We would appreciate that. And we're going to be talking about some of the programs we do, and also for our guests, some of the things they're involved in. But for now, let me just invite them to introduce themselves. Beginning with Emma Milorio. We are glad that you're here today. You're director at Kyoto, but you're a lot more things. You're a parent as well. So let me give you the chance to say a lot more about yourself.
Thank you, Simon. And it's wonderful to be here again on another Sunday, Utamaduni Day, and I can see you got the memo. We're all wearing African. I don't know whether Bishop also got the memo, but happy Utamaduni Day to all. As Simon said, I'm a educationist. I'm passionate about education. I'm passionate about impacting the next generation. And I'm also an architect, but most importantly, I'm a wife and a mother to 3 beautiful children, and walking this journey of parenting together with my husband Chris. And as a school, we also have a greater responsibility in terms of working with other parents. So it's something we're really passionate about, and that we're really grateful for the opportunity God has given us to be able to impact families and generations to come. So it's always a pleasure to be with Transform Nations, and thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Emma. And of course, the Bishop himself, a good friend of mine for many years. He was here yesterday. Also passionate about education and about pastoring as well, shepherding God's people. Bishop Karibu, and today you're not with your wife, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Simeon and Sophie. It's great to know both of you for many years, and just appreciate the consistency that you have shown and the burden that you have, especially for the total family, is a huge challenge that you've taken up, and a very serious battlefront. But I thank God that you have continued to be strong and to trailblaze. Yeah, like you've said, I'm Stanley Mwalili. I'm a trained farmer by profession, really. I trained as a farmer, but I ended up on the pulpit for the last more than 25 years, and God has been gracious to me. And in the process, of course, we ended up starting Emerald International School, which we thank God for the opportunity to educate children and also to influence families in just the nation at large. So I'm so grateful to be here today, and I'm looking forward to an exciting program.
Okay. Well, excellent. Welcome, Bishop. Let me start off by asking Emma a question, and then Sophie will ask the Bishop. We have this conversation going. But Emma, you have been involved a lot with parents, and I know at Kyoto you have the parenting program as well, and we have been happy to partner in that. But last week we focused a lot on the fact that there is school at home and school in school. And so we said we need partnership between those two centers of education. We need there to be partnership for people to work together. And also we talked about how to choose the right kind of curriculum or education for your children. But today we want to get a bit more personal. What are some of the challenges that you realize in school would face the children because of what the parents are not doing at home? Some ways we can tell parents, hey, if you do this at home, it's affecting what's happening in school and what's happening for your child. But some things you say, parents, please be careful about this and that, because it's making it very hard for your children to learn.
Thank you, Simon. And I think as a follow-up to our conversation last week, we really said the two, home and school, must be in harmony. We must be on the same page, and that was, I think, the whole conversation about when you choose a school, does it align to your values as a parent? And the same sometimes with a school. Sometimes parents have to align with the values of the school. Otherwise, you're off step, and there's some disharmony that you find that you grapple with certain situations that you said, okay, people, we've been singing this, every other day. Why aren't we aligning? And I think there are different aspects, but today maybe that's just what just struck me is, is a question around technology. That's a big one right now for us. That we have our. It's something that the whole world is grappling with, even as parents, and we find that sometimes from a very early age, and it's not only about preteens and teenagers, but from very early age, we find that if we're not aligned also very much on the technology aspect, because technology is how a lot of influence is coming into the home, a lot of influence is coming in terms of the children. And what we've been grappling with is, as a school is we have certain standards that we are saying that this is what we expect. We've been singing certain things from when children are in kindergarten, and we're finding sometimes there's some disharmony when the parents do not align to what the school has been saying. And that's been a big struggle for us as a school, amid others, of course, and I'm sure we'll have those conversations about when there's disharmony between mom and dad, whether you're and playing out in school, in the children, in how they're able to focus. Those two have been very have come out very strongly for us as a school when certain things are happening, and children are not able even to focus in school because of just how much time screen time they're having at home. So that's one aspect I would say that we've struggled with.
Technology, just to add a little bit more. I think when you're talking about technology is you find, because I know the school, that you have certain regulations in terms of time of exposure to the screen. But also the content that children get to be exposed to. And I think there are certain cases that, if I'm right, you find the parents are a lot more liberal and they're not checking what the children are being exposed to, and they're bringing that to school, or maybe they're just allowing them to keep them busy. Maybe the parents are busy and just allowing the kids to watch, hours on end. And that begins to affect the school. That's what you say.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And maybe just, Simon, because of COVID, I think the school also became one space in terms of tech. So we're able to almost, because of the platforms, to see how much we got into a peek into the home in terms of how much time the children were spending, because certain platforms are now school platforms, and we're just wondering, so we got a peek into that, and we're able to sort of see, how much time and what things the children are posting one way or the other. And yet, as a school, we've said, these are our goals. We've told parents, not more than this, A, B, C, D, and then we find those they're not aligning to those. So exactly what you've said. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's very interesting. I think around technology, I don't know what challenges Bishop would say they have encountered. How do you direct? Because the reality is that we almost can't do without them now. I think one of the things about the COVIDs, especially the lockdown that happened between March and I think January this year, was that, people, I'll give an example that we have a certain rule about the age at which our children are allowed gadgets. But COVID happened. The child, one of our last one isn't yet at that point, but we now needed to get her a gadget before the designated time because of COVID. So we had to sort of go back and do that. And we can tell that, she's young, she's not handling it too well, and yet we could not avoid it. I don't know, what guidelines would you say, would you give parents, Bishop Moleli, in terms of technology and how to regulate and how to balance between it being a tool for education and yet needing to regulate so that then it doesn't become a problem for children?
Yeah, I guess it's very difficult to really prescribe any cookbook sort of situation for handling electronic gadgets, because like you rightly said, it has become a necessary evil. And I'm sure you remember, if you did some basic biology, you remember perspiration in plants is a necessary evil.
You're a truly trained farmer.
Yeah, perspiration is
that stage.
Perspiration is needed, because if plants don't perspire, then they can draw out water from the soil. Yeah. And so we are caught up in a very difficult situation. It's like we are between a rock and a hard place, where we have this wonderful thing whose potential for good is immense, but on the other side, whose potential for evil is equally immense, if not bigger. And so that leaves us with some very precarious choices to make. And so, like Emma said, I guess we can only introduce certain guidelines. And again, in the absence of supervision right from home, it becomes difficult. And that brings me to some of the challenges that you are asking. Because when you look at parental support, I think this is where it comes in. At school, we might be able to regulate and say, okay, no cell phones in school. And then the machines in school, they are possibly wired and configured in a certain way that you cannot use them to access anything else other than content. But as soon as a child gets into the dad's car, the first thing they do is they run onto the phone, and all the way, depending on how far the drive is, they will be probably looking at everything that they've been wanting to look at since they came to school in the morning. And so one of the things that I believe we can do is not necessarily to say, okay, these many hours. It's good to do that, but in the absence of a monitoring program, it's just a good rule that we don't know how it's going to be, enforced. And so one of the things we need to address is simply negligence. I think parents will become negligent in the sense, like Emma said, until COVID, we weren't too keen to just find out what these kids are doing. And then all of a sudden, we realize we have to check what they do. My boys are now big. One of them is, of course, too big now. There's very little I can do. He's not even in Kenya. So, but he's responsible enough. But the one that lives with us, special needs, but we're still struggling with him because I have to allow him time. But when I just need to go and make a cup of tea, I come and find he has logged into Spider-Man for several minutes. And and we have to keep having that discussion. So you can imagine I'm home and I'm still not able to quite control that. So a parent who is working away from home is a huge problem. So that's number one. And of course, obviously absenteeism for parents. When you're absent, you don't know what happens. So you either completely deny the child the gadget, and when you deny them, then they will find something else to do, which may equally not be as good. And again, you keep them away from a piece of technology that is part of their life. You see, these kids were born with technology, in technology and with technology. So it's part of their life. So when you deny them a piece of technology, it's like denying, a toy to a kid growing up. And then the other thing is, of course, poor supervision. Again, like Emma said, when we don't supervise properly, kids are getting addicted to, to digital electronic things. And I was trying to Google some video. I think when you get time, just look for digital cocaine. It's a terrible situation. There's something called digital cocaine. And I'm told in South Korea right now, they have rehab centers for digital cocaine rehabilitation, where people are being rehabilitated. When you withdraw a gadget from a child that is addicted, you can see the withdrawal reactions. Some get so mad, they almost want to, go to the kitchen and break plates because the thing is so much into us. So Sophie, I think what I can say is we just need to be bold enough and possibly draw lines. I think what we need to do is try and draw lines from very early and try and instill discipline in the kids themselves, as opposed to relying on our supervision. Because clearly, if we are the ones going to supervise, we have lost the war. We are not there. You can't be with the kid. And, remember, funny content is just one click away. So it's really difficult. So if there's a way we can start early enough to just help kids understand that, electronic gadgets are good, but just like fire, the way we train our kids to handle fire, they know fire is good, but then they know that if they take a matchstick and strike it in the bedroom, they could cause a havoc in the home. So we grow up knowing that fire is bad. Of course, the thing about fire is that when a child burns, they have a personal experience. Digital cocaine doesn't burn like fire. That's where the challenge is. So here we are left to just educate and teach and probably find ways to show our kids how dangerous, these digital things are, and hopefully create an impression strong enough to have them have personal restraints. Otherwise, it's not easy. It's not easy. I must admit, there is no easy answer to that question.
That's true. I think we have tried, Emma, to talk to the parents. I know in your place to tell them, this is what is happening. If you overexpose, then it might go towards that addiction that he's talking about, and it's going to be hard. And there's what they call hyper stimulation. For kids, when they stay on these gadgets a lot, their minds are so hyper, multitasking, and that they're not able to focus, and it's affecting education. And I think for parents, just being able to say, okay, I'm going to take this seriously, either through the software, the supervision software these days, that wherever you are, you can tell what they access. But before you use the supervision software and before you do, the locking of PG rating and things like that, I think what Bishop you're saying is the values, teaching them that this is what this can do to you. These are the dangers of technology. This is how it can affect you negatively. Those kind of things, so that as they pick up the discipline, that they know why, they understand why, and how this is affecting their ability to think and all of that. So we talk about parental technology agreement with the kids, where you get them to sign, you tell them why, and you begin to work with them. But it's interesting, Emma, I think we still see parents, some of them push back or either hide a gadget for their children. Why do parents do that? Do they feel like we are denying them, what is due them, or what is? I'm sure you have caught some kids with the phones in school, even when they're not supposed to bring them.
Yeah, and I think maybe just even we got into a technology discussion, but I think what there's something Bishop said there that just struck me, that this applies to all areas of life, whether it's technology, whether it's whatever else, that we need intentional parents. I think that's sometimes the challenge. Intentional parents, whether it's intentional about when they're allowing their children to have technology, they're intentional about ensuring that they've protected their children against the dangers or equipped them enough. And the same intentional parenting is what, it's a whole spectrum, whether it's technology, whether it's in support of schoolwork and ensuring you're working with your child in terms of their journey, whether it is in terms of instilling values. I think that becomes a challenge when you have parents who may not be aligned in values or do not understand quite the dots and how they all connect to then other things that happen in life. So you might sometimes it's overcompensating or compensating for time and sort of maybe this is just how I'm interpreting it in terms of having some guilt because we're not able to be as intentional as we would like to because of just factors of life sometimes, that you're not there, that you're not able to, be as authoritative as you'd like. You don't know how to, your parenting is a very big challenge. So sometimes a gadget is an easy fix to a situation. A child is throwing a tantrum. Instead of dealing with that, I can give them this. If a child now it's a preteen saying, I want a phone and I want to do this, and I'm not equipped to be able to deal with this because no one has ever told me how to navigate this thing called parenting. And technology is an easy fix to that. It's like, the sweet, or the chocolate. And so I'm just, thinking of it that way in terms of we have ill-equipped parents in a very, very challenging world, much more challenging than for our parents. Our parents may not have been equipped, or rather they were equipped with the kiboko, and it worked for that time. But now that, dynamics of the world have really, really changed. Yeah.
No, I love that. I love what you're saying, that as parents, we just need equipping so that we understand. Otherwise, sometimes we could be thinking we're helping our kids, but we're actually destroying them. And of course, I think they're saying a lot of kids are struggling a lot more in education, in school, because of those gadgets. They actually affect attention, the ability to focus. And I think I saw that a lot when COVID hit, and the first few weeks, the children were focusing on what they are learning. But after a while, you just find you call them and they're watching some other things, Spider-Man and other things. And they have to come back, and you can tell that they have not gotten much. But before we come back to you, Emma, let's involve Bishop a little bit in something that he has experienced that you can help the parents who are experiencing that.
Right. Coming to you, Bishop, but I think as I listened to Emma and as I listened to Simon about the parental technology agreement, let me tell you, I think the easier part is to sign the agreement and come up with the ideal. The work is in the enforcement. In fact, it makes me really empathize with the police. They are the enforcement officers. As parents, we are the police, we are the enforcement officers, and there many times we have sat down with our children and say, these are the rules of the house. Let me tell you, it is very, very easy to come up with brilliant rules until you have to enforce them. That's when you realize just how much of a responsibility you have taken upon ourselves. And honestly, sometimes I feel like throwing away my own rule book for parenting, because I'm like, who is gonna put in all this work? So we must also appreciate, one, that parents are overwhelmed, not because they're bad parents, that there's so much that needs to be done. People are going to school. There's a lifestyle that people need to sustain. And so it just takes a lot away from us. So that is one. And on the other hand, then there is also the issue of parenting, I would say you're punching above your head as a parent, in the sense that you have not lived the life that your child lived. I was just thinking the other day that the first time I got a TV or got access to a phone, I was an adult, post-university. I think we got our first TV. Is it? I think about 7 years into marriage. And of course, the phones came just the other day. But our children are actually being born. This is even gadgets, electronics to monitor the child crying when you're in one room or the other. I mean, so many things that have come up to make so, like I said, we are punching above our head, no experience whatsoever, no reference point, and that can be overwhelming. And hence, then the push towards, can we get into communities where we learn from each other as parents? What is working? What can I do? And I'm not saying that now you take all the things I say and apply them. You pick the principles and apply them to your own particular context. Yeah, so I guess those are some of the challenges, the very realistic challenges that we talk about. And maybe at this point, it would be good to also mention that at Transform Nations, we do have programs for parenting where we actually sit down and talk about these issues. I get to hear from, an older parent, and I learn. And I must say that it really did help me as an individual. When I did Mothers of Sons, now we have also intentional moms so that we can include the daughters. But it did help to just sit there and just to make me feel that what I'm going through as a parent is not a dynamic between me and my child. It is a general issue of my generation. And so we would really want to encourage viewers to sign up for these classes, those who have not done. We also have intentional dads, so that you just sit together, learn from each other, because I think that's how we become a village in this day and age. And then lastly, I said 3 things. The third one is just that we are a lot more disconnected. I think our parents, remember I had several parents, and any adult could be a parent. If they caught me misbehaving on the road, they didn't need to be my mother. They didn't need to know my mother. They just disciplined me because there was communal responsibility for children. Now that is not there. I mean, you could, if you try to do that, you will be sued for child abuse. Yeah, so those challenges are there. But moving on to...
Before we move on, let me just ask, say something.
Yeah.
And then we can now talk with you, Bishop. But also one of the things we do that helps is to bring the children together. Like tomorrow, we have a function where we get all the boys together. We go and do some stuff with them at the waterfront in Karen. And in the process, we talk with them. And you see there are kids from different places. So when we talk about the general rules of technology with them, then they realize it's not just in their home that this happens. And they're being talked to people who are not far removed from them, not just their parents, but others telling them, guys, this is how this can go wrong. So we do those kind of get-togethers, 412 girls and 412 boys, and we get to gather them together and talk about some of those things, and that could be helpful. So just putting that out there. But we want to go on and Bishop just talk about the parents who may have special needs children and some of the ways that they need to work with them. And maybe just to go ahead and ask, what would you say those who realize maybe their children have a certain special need? It could be that they're slow learners, it could be that they're autistic, it could be several other things, and they need to get involved with them. There are just some parents who don't know what to do.
Yeah, thank you, Simeon and Sophie, and of course Emma. I think you've said something very powerful when you talked about what parents need to do, and you mentioned very in a very kind way incompetence and lack of expertise for parents. It's not our wish, and I am so grateful that Transform Nations is doing something about it, because kids can really hold parents hostage, and particularly parents have not known how to go about that, and especially if we have allowed too much leeway and latitude, it's very difficult to recover children that have not been told that there are boundaries. And so that requires quite a bit of boldness. And you find a number of parents are not bold enough. Once a kid begins to cry and throw a tantrum, they also begin to cry with them, and they do everything the kid wants. And that's a huge challenge. And so I guess I highly recommend that, and possibly I think we will probably enlarge the partnership bracket to see if we can bring in many, many more, especially young parents who are just coming to life now. Going now to your question on special needs kids, I think the greatest hurdle that parents with special needs children must overcome is the realization and admission, coming to terms with the fact that my child is special needs. In my life, raising a special needs child over the last 24 years, that has been the biggest challenge, and running a school that has almost come to be identified synonymously with special needs children. In fact, there are people who think Emerald International School is a special needs school. And it's because, being parents of an autistic son, we were very sympathetic to a lot of kids that are slow learning. And so everyone who gets trouble with their child anywhere, they will always be sent to us. And at some point, we had to try and make it very clear that we are really not a special needs school. And in fact, at some point, we almost began a special needs school to cater for kids like that. But back to the discussion, the challenge is when parents live in denial and they keep defending their child. We've had a lot of challenges at Emerald where parents bring in, what they normally do is they bring in the child who is performing well, but they have left the brother or sister at home. And then after probably one semester, then they bring the other child. And then they bring the child, they don't quite declare. But then because of our experience, Dr. Ann Dr. Ann just needs to look at a child for 2 minutes, and she will know we are dealing with something special here. And of course, since you can label a child, we demand that then such a child needs to be subjected to certain tests. And then from there, we can be able to advise a parent. You still find that some parents are very cross, and they will accuse you of labeling their child and stuff like that. And so for me, the greatest hurdle that every parent that has that problem has overcome is the admission and acceptance that, yes, I'm dealing with a special situation here and I need to deal with it. And then from there, obviously, there's need for diagnosis so that you establish the extent of the challenge. Some challenges, operate on some sort of spectra where you find it could be either low functioning or high functioning, and that determines the kind of intervention that is needed. There are kids who are simply, whether you like it or not, should not really go to what you call a regular school, for lack of a better word, because you are just wasting time. They will not really manage. So they may just need to go to specially designed school for children like that. There are those who may be high functioning and they will require to be integrated within a normal learning environment, but then they must have what we call a shadow teacher, someone who, sits by them throughout to really help them, because if you leave them on their own, they will not make it. And then there are those who just need a little help, and after some time, they will probably overcome it. And so for parents, I think it's very important to ensure that there is integrated approach, because then some of the conditions have been known to be severely reduced because of some of the eating habits. There are certain foods that you want to ensure that some special needs children don't take. I think generally, without becoming a doctor here, because I'm not, it's been proven that if children who have autism are kept away from too much wheat and, casein, that is dairy products, they seem to calm down, because the issue is to reduce their level of hyperactivity so that they can sit down and learn, And then, of course, with a lot of support from the school and home, so that there is a lot of back and forth communication and monitoring, then those kids can be helped to get to a certain level. I must say that parents who have special needs children must, come down from the idea of, my child will be an engineer, will be a great person, and all those kind of things. Learning now becomes almost like you just want them to be able to communicate and probably to relate with the environment, and you stop worrying too much about them becoming some big professional. We are not saying they can be, but we just manage our expectations, because you see a lot of parents are so frustrated, and even their own life stops because their child is not able to even move one grade in 3 years. And that can completely pulverize an entire family if we are not careful. There are many, many other things these kids can do. They are very gifted. Some of them are artists, they're musicians, they're good in something. You just need to find what that is. And because God doesn't really deny people everything, if we are to say like that. So I'm not sure. I think I've said very many things and probably gone outside the question, but I just let my mind wander.
Yeah. No, I think you have tackled it very well. And I think it's just to encourage the parents, realize when you find that your children are differently enabled and they have certain challenges, then you need to be careful and just accept it and work with the teachers and whoever other professionals. So just being involved, really, so that then your children don't find themselves disadvantaged in their education because you're not giving them the attention that they need. So well said. And I know at Almasi we have tried to also work with the field like that, and it's not easy, it's challenging, but it's part of working together with the parents to make this possible so that our children could learn as well. But let's get back to Emma.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing in the point of special needs, Bishop, because, and I think every child is special. Really, every one of us is special.
Yeah.
So the degrees of our specialness really varies. And I think what I am hearing is that in 2 words, as I listen to this conversation, 2 words stand out. Involvement. As a parent, you have to be involved in the life of your child, because the kiboko does not work anymore. And the children are quite tech savvy. There's one time I was having a conversation with my daughter about technology. And it's very interesting. I did not know that there's something called incognito tabs, where you can you can sort of catch them in terms of, Bishop, you look like you're like me. You didn't know that you can search the net incognito. This look on your face. But anyway, so my child told me, Mom, you just have to trust me to tell you. And she said, you can catch my little brother with his history. They know how to cover up, but me, I know how to cover up. So don't even waste your time, trying to. Well, I said, all right, thank you for informing me. But what I'm glad about that scenario is that we had established a relationship where my child could even tell me, yeah, Mom, Yani, that is a rabbit trail and it will not lead you far in terms of what you're really hoping to accomplish. I'm glad that I had that relationship. So involvement, parents have to leverage on information. Things like, because mommy said, because daddy said, they don't work with this generation of children we're raising. And then also information for both the parents, but also information to our children. Our children are exposed to a lot. They're living in the information age, but they do not understand everything that they see and know. And so somebody has to break it down for them. This is what you're seeing. This is the impact of what you're seeing. This is how you can avoid it. This is how it is not necessary. And then to just keep in your child. I think last week I said, being a student of your child and really being very intentional about just knowing, keeping tabs on your child, not from a place of wanting to police them, but from a place of wanting to form a relationship that then you can leverage with them. And before I go, because once we go, I'd like to say that when it comes to specialized education, I like to call it children who need a personal pathway that is different from the regular, what is regularly prescribed in school. I'd say that to parents, take your child to, before you dump your child, let me use that word, dump your child in a school for them to babysit for you. And if they purport to say that they accommodate special needs children or children who need a personal pathway, please ask questions. What do you do? How is it different? How do we track progress? And it's not necessarily because you're aiming for the grades and all, but just for you to understand that you're not paying for an expensive babysitter service. So what is the school providing? And if the school is not providing what they're saying they're providing, please, it is distressful for a child to be in an environment that is not welcoming to them, that is distressing them, where nobody is prepared to have them. And so be very intentional, ask questions, because you are paying for that service. You deserve to get what you are paying for. I mean, it's something worth your money. And now on to Emma to ask, what did you say in terms of relationship, as far as parents are concerned, with their children? Is there a way that parents relate with children that is not helpful? Have you seen success stories, or what have been your best stories, and around parent-child relationships that would say have been your favorite? And every school owner has their premium parent, the one who
the poster parent, usually the poster child. You have a poster parent.
Yeah. What did you say is a thread, with those poster parents as far as their relationship? What makes it work? What are those things that you would say from experience, really work?
Yeah. And just listening also to the special needs conversation, I think the special needs conversation it sort of magnifies. When Bishop was talking about being involved, it's also a special relationship with your child, a special relationship with your school. It magnifies what should be the ideal, ideal relationship between your child, your school. Is just being very involved. Now, when you have a special child, you have to be even more intentional about being involved. And I mean, the values and the things that you push for when you have a special needs situation are still the same ones, but now maybe much more heightened, as it were. I mean, more conversations between the school and the home, but really still the foundation is the same, that you want that triangle to really, really work between the child, the parent, and the school. And to your question about then what, and I liked what you were saying also about relationships and our children nowadays. It's no longer, like what you said, yes or no. They know so much, actually. In fact, I find myself asking, I have an 11-year-old and he has facts like this. Because of the information age, I actually ask him some things sometimes about the world, like, so what's an atom? And he'll explain it to you in a very simple way, because the information is at their fingertips and they're understanding things differently. So in the same way, I think we have to explain things to them that our parents never did, in whatever, whether it's the values you're trying to instill in them, you have to explain that. And to your question then also of what we see working is exactly what you were saying, that parents who are involved, that are always in touch with the teacher. To be a student of your child is not only studying your child, it's talking to people who relate with your child, because you will know, and I see this with my children sometimes, that the person they are with me is not always the person they are with their friends, is not always the person they are with their teacher. Like there's there's a bit of tweaking, and as mothers, they show us a really interesting side sometimes. And sometimes I'll see them in a relationship with their dad and how they're relating, and I'm like, okay, that's a bit different. It takes me 5, like you were saying, Lester, I have to repeat something 5 times for something to be done. The other day I was having a good laugh because this was interesting, because it was actually my son's friend who had come over for a play date. And it was shower time, and he had not gone into the house. It was 7 p.m. He's supposed to come into the house and shower. He was busy bouncing a ball outside. And I had already told them, 7 p.m., come into the house. And then Daddy, his friend's dad, my husband, just drove in with a car to the parking. The boy abandoned the ball and ran in. And I was looking at that dynamic, and I've been screaming here. And the dad, not even his dad, someone, his friend's dad, just needed to drive in. And I was like, this is very interesting. So back to without derailing, but back to the conversation, that understanding, the different angles that make up your child. And that's involving yourself with a school, asking certain questions, hearing back from the teacher, seeing what you need to enforce more at home, understanding a little bit of that. What you need to enforce for one child may not be what you need to enforce for another child. So it's someone, like you said, the poster parent is an involved parent, is a parent who shows up for all the transformations sessions, sitting at the front row with their file as they're supposed to be. Is someone who shows up for when it is, sports day, the good old days pre-COVID, because the child sees my parent cares, and what I do is important to my mom or my dad, to both actually. So that's a poster parent, the one who's involved, the one who studies their child, the one who comes to ask the right questions, and challenges the school sometimes even to say, I think this is the way we should be going. That's always, welcomed in a sense. So it's an involved parent who understands that their child is not 100% perfect, but is ready to work with you as a school to see that the child is able to fulfill their potential, their God-given potential. So I think that's, if you're asking what a poster parent is, that's our poster parent. And the one who reads all our texts. Please, the one who reads all our texts. Mlisema tunakuja, mimi sikuona your text. But anyway. Yeah.
Oh, but they saw the one about school fees anyway.
Yes, they always see the one about school fees.
But anyway, I think the other thing that I would say that the poster parent is that when it comes to school, of course, school is run by human beings, and we try. I want to believe. I know Bishop Emma. I have interacted with your people a little bit, and I want to believe, from what I see at face value, that there is a certain level of commitment to deliver services at a certain level that is righteous. Let me call that. Of course, within the context of human brokenness and limitations. And so I think the poster parent is one who does not undermine the child's sense of safety while they are in school. And how can we do this? You see, if you sit and you loudly badmouth, the school that your child is going to, and you badmouth your teacher, what have you done for that child? You have made it impossible for that child to exist in the school context in peace. You have planted seeds of doubt and discord and undermined your co-parent, because I tell parents that teachers are your co-parents. They spend more time with your child than you possibly do between the age of 3 and 17 years. So I'd say, I'm not saying don't question, but spare your child the gory details about, or let me take that back. Spare the child, the conversation of negative, they call them these days, negative vibes. And I'm not saying don't ask the question, but constrain yourself to ask them to the people that are actually capable of providing the answers that you need. But if you get into this conversation, you know, you will come to school, you will probably resolve it with Emma or Bishop or Dr. Choya. But will you go back to the child to tell them that you resolved? No, most likely not. So you leave them in that quagmire where they don't trust school as a safe space, and it becomes very difficult. So I think that's another thing that foster parents will not do. They will, when the story goes home, they will call to confirm the fact and to resolve without undermining the child's sense of safety with the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think those are good nuggets. Now we're almost coming to the last round because of time, but we want to appreciate all of you. Evelyn Yasende, we see you and thank you for your good comments there. Hilary Limo, you're joining us from The Hague, Netherlands. All the best there and take care. Anne Kamau is also saying awesome discussion. And yes, we do train people on how to mentor the young children, the young people. We have a training that we do. And if you get to us, we will actually have one of us write to you and we can let you know when the next one is going to be and you could join in. Kamamboro, you say great insights this evening. Thanks for the platform. I always benefit much from this as a career teacher. Stay appreciated. Thank you people for joining us. We appreciate that. But as we come towards a close, Bishop, a lot of unresolved problems at home spill over to school. You're a bishop, so you get to teach these people in church, but you also run a school, so you see the spillover. What are some of the ways you could tell people, especially, I think just the fights between especially separated parents and sometimes moms who don't want to allow the father to get access to the children and just all the drama that happens sometimes when relationships are not working at home. What are some ways from a bishop's perspective would you say to these parents so that they don't then affect the children and their educational journey?
Yeah, thank you very much, Simon. I think that's a very important question. We take cognizance of the fact that these are real issues. I mean, conflict are real. We can't wish them away, and they're really part of life. But I guess we need to request parents to try and really keep their conflicts and battles away from their children. We are witnesses of how devastating these things can be to kids. Some kids come to school and at some point there's a meltdown and the kid just cries uncontrollably and you're trying to wonder what has happened. And then when they calm down and you speak to them, they tell them either mom and dad fought in the morning or mom, daddy ran away last night, he hasn't returned, we don't know where he is, and all these kind of things. And as much as, reality is that marriages have problems, I guess my advice to parents is to understand that kids are innocent pawns in some battle they don't understand, they were not even part of. And we must find a way to outgrow and rise above those conflicts when it comes to the welfare and the education of the children. I'll tell you, I know, without mentioning names, I know some parents in our school who don't see eye to eye, but when it comes to the kids, you will never know they are at war. You will never know. They will come in, sit together, attend the birthday party, attend the parent-teacher, conference. And when they leave, they even leave in a way that they will not even bring confusion at the car park. And that's how they have decided to handle it. But when they meet outside, then, they could just as well, kill one another. But when it comes to the kids, they have decided we are going to protect these kids and make sure that our differences do not play, where they are. So I know this is easier said than done because, once you differ with someone that you once loved, the pain can be unimaginable. And some of the causes of these pains are deep betrayals that are very difficult to manage. But we must understand that, and this is what I tell our church members, that You know, Malachi 2:15, when God brings a man and a woman together, he's seeking after a godly offspring. And that's why I say that marriage goes beyond just the immediate marital needs of a husband and wife, because in there is the program to produce a godly offspring. And so if our own agenda has failed, then we must allow God's agenda to prevail. And again, that's easier said than done. But if someone would just get that sense, then we would sacrifice our personal interests and selfish interests and say, for the sake of this kid, I will not allow myself to fight with their mom in their presence, and I will not fail to attend their school day because I differ to their mom. If there's a way we can get into that, we can help our kids to really go through some of the most difficult periods they have to, especially when they'll be confronted with situations where it's closing day, mom is not in school, dad is not in school. Why? Because they don't want to even meet there. It is very, very sad. Many, many times I've had to step in and become daddy to kids whose parents never turned up to an important event.
Yeah. Well, that's sad, and we're going to come back to you just to maybe share, just a word of prayer and encouragement. But Emma, maybe your last words of encouragement when it comes to parenting and education from your personal experience.
Yeah, I think I've said it, and we've said it throughout in terms of my parting shot, that intentionality is sort of the seed that then will produce a kind of, or equip us. But if we're intentional, we will look for the tools. If we're intentional, we'll yearn to create a relationship with our children. If we're intentional, we will surround ourselves with community and ask for help when it's needed. So I think intentionality is a seed that we need as parents to say, look, this is a gift from God, and through me, there's a purpose this child is meant to live out, and I must be intentional in assisting this child to live out their potential, whether it is in academia, whether it's spiritual. I think there are many facets that Dr. Ann last Sunday had spelt out in parenting, and all those. For me to be able to do that, it means I have to be intentional. I shouldn't wing it, really, because it's one of the most, if not the most important roles I may have in my life. So I think that is just the parting shot, that nobody knows the answers, but if we seek them, more often than not, we'll get majority of the answers in whatever situations we are in. So to encourage everybody out there, despite all the troubles and despite all the crises that we may have, that really we can do it. And on this World Mental Health Day, I think it's just also, tell everybody that your feelings are valid, and even as the Bishop was speaking about being very careful, about the scars we leave on our children. I think today is Utamaduni Day, but also World Mental Health Day, just to make sure that we're not scarring our children, and that we're equipping them and giving them, possibility of a life that is really fulfilled, and that they're happy. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Sophie, just half a minute, last words, and then we'll pray together. Bishop will lead us in a brief prayer.
I think I was just thinking about, I knew this question was coming about my last words. And I was thinking about it and thinking that, the lifespan years, the school going years of any adult, any individual, are actually spent in school. They say that by the time you're out of school, you spend about 70% of your entire lifetime in school. And so school becomes a very important environment, and feature and influence on your child. And so I think that as you think about education for our children, and it doesn't matter where your child goes to school, whether it's in the public school, whether it's in the private school, whether it's in the Christian school, it really does not matter. We have an amazing opportunity as parents for us to plug into the process and to really help the children, because the school-going age, like I say, is spent in school, and in developmental studies, those are called the formative years. In other words, who you become as an adult is really formed in your school-going age years. So it's imperative that as parents who really want to leave a heritage of solid character, faith, whatever it is that you value, that you then become involved very intentionally, and you seek information for your children, so then you can walk alongside your children and support them through those years.
Yeah. Excellent, good people. Thank you very much for tuning in and being part of this community. There are some of you have been very regular. You never really not show up, and others who are joining us. But we are so grateful to you, Emma. Thank you for being part of this conversation last week and this week. Thank you, Bishop, as well. Please say to Dr. Ann, we have missed her. We appreciate you. I think feel free all to contact Emma at Kyoto Schools. You can find that on the social media, and you will see what they do and where they are. They have several branches, and Bishop as well. What's the name of the school again?
Emerald.
International. Yeah, I want to miss international.
Yeah.
And you can find these schools in there on the net, and of course for Sophie here, Almasi International. These are good schools, and we want to encourage those of you who are looking for schools. These are places to look. And for all of us, especially on this mental health day, let's make sure that our children are safe and happy and well taken care of at home, to reduce mental stress that sometimes they have from our homes. And I'm sure the schools will do a good job as well. Well, thank you very much, Bishop. If you could just say a brief blessing over us.
Okay, Father, we thank you this evening for the discussion we've had. We have talked about many things, and especially the welfare of our children. We thank you that you love children. And where Jesus, when you walked on the streets of Jerusalem, you said that children should be brought to you. And even today, you still want children to be brought to you. I pray that as responsible parents, we will ensure that no child is kept away from you. And most importantly, that our lives will reflect Christ, and that you will be in the center of the things that we do. We pray for those dear ones who, for some reasons beyond their capability, life has become very tough for them, and they're disagreeing, and their children are bearing the brand of this. I pray for your healing and grace, and even the wisdom to navigate through such landmines in life. Thank you, Lord, even for children that have been scarred. We lift them before you tonight. We ask for your grace and your blessing. And Lord, I pray that you help us even as we continue to do what we have to do to transform nations as we partner together. Thank you for Pastor Simeon and our sister Sophie, and the school and the ministry that you've given to them. We pray for your grace and prosperity in the name of Jesus. Thank you for our sister Emma and Kyoto Schools, for the great job they are doing to shape nations and, societies. I pray, Father, for growth and multiplication and impact to the glory of your name. We commit the evening into your hands, and those who follow the program, we ask for your grace and blessing. Be there anyone that has a special need that may have been activated by this discussion, we pray that you meet them and lead them to the right place where they can get solutions to the challenges that they may have. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you very much, Bishop, Emma. Good night to all of you. And
thank you.
The rest of you guys who follow us, see you next Sunday for another very stimulating discussion.
Thank you.
Bless you.